Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith. And today, listeners, I've got a lovely lady. She's from Lithuania. And I hope I'm going to get the name right. Her name is Ieva Kambarovaite. Is that right?
That will do. Yes, it's a very complicated Lithuanian name. Ieva Kambarovaite. Yes.
Kanbarovaite. Okay. All right. So thank you for that. I'm glad I don't have to say that again. And that you've got a good, easy name, first name for me to carry on talking to you, Eva. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about why am I still single? And Eva is an author and she's a dating coach, and she's actually wrote a book on this subject. So I'm very keen to know, firstly, what is it that made you get into this particular field of coaching, and what sort of inspired you to write that particular book?
So my first book is actually for men, and it has a very controversial title. It's called How to Get Laid Now, the Modern Man's Strategy to Approaching Women Like the Boss, which some places ban me for this book. Other places, they giggle when they hear the title of the book. So I firstly started working with men because I noticed that there was a problem. I met a lot of great guys, but they didn't know how to present themselves. They didn't feel confident. They felt very insecure. They were trying too hard or too little. And I just really wanted to help them to write a book that could be straightforward, without any pickup lines, without any game that pickup artists are suggesting to a lot of men, which I think it can be terrible because you are trying to be someone that you're not. And when you're trying to be someone that you're not, I think you attract the wrong kind of person. And there's just that long for how long you can keep that face of being someone that you're not. So after I wrote that book, and then I went to events and I did podcasts, I got approached by women, and women asked me, well, they said, I need something like that, but for women. So then I wrote my second book, which is called Why Am I Still Single? The Truth I Wish My Mom Told Me About Men. That's a short story. Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I understand why there would be a big difference between the two titles, because I think, to be honest, if we targeted women with How to Get Laid, I don't think they'd be very, very receptive to that sort of description, to be honest. So talking about the subject of why am I still single, what do you think are the main reasons why women today are probably single long term and not attracting the relationships they want?
So I think there are a lot of reasons why someone is single. It could be that they are single because they are simply very busy and they're not allocating their time and energy or finding the relationship. I think nowadays women are proud, they're really encouraged to work towards their career. And if you are a woman, let's say in your late 20s, and you say, oh, I actually would like to have a family and have maybe a baby or something, right? She's almost shamed because you have to be extremely accomplished in your career and things like that. I think there is this narrative. So I think a lot of women buy into that. They don't think that being in a relationship is that important. I think then there is a different issue that someone may had a few relationships where they had their heart broken and they have simply given up on love. They think, why even bother? Why even try? And I'll have my heart broken again. And then I think there is also a number of people that are on dating apps and they're going on a lot of dates, but they are simply not in a place where they want to open up to someone. and they are saying, oh, there is no one that's good enough for me, or my standards are too high. But very often it could also be that their heart is closed, and they themselves, these women, are not in a place to commit. So I think there could be so many reasons. Why do you think, what do you think are the reasons that some women are single?
I agree with you. I talk a lot about masculine and feminine energy in my trainings and with clients, because I do believe, especially in recent decades, we have been educated and parented to be more in our masculine energy, and we've become obviously more independent, which is a good thing, which is great. I'm not against being more independent. I'm not against equality. I believe equality is good for everybody, but equality means, equal opportunities. It doesn't mean being the same as men. And I think in a lot of ways we become the same as men in the energy we give off, and therefore we're not attracting a man that will be attracted to our feminine energy.
I agree. And then I think when women are too masculine, they are not letting men be masculine. So then the men become very feminine. And I hear women, I'm sure you hear women say all the time, where are all the real men? There are no real men these days. Well, yes, there are, but when you are behaving in a way when you are not letting that man to be in his masculine, then there has to be some sort of dynamic. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. So a lot of quite masculine women are, of course, attracting feminine men. And these women are frustrated with these men because they're not following up in the way they want to. They're not showing up. They're not being assertive and ambitious. But you have to be more feminine if you want to attract that masculine guy. That's how I see it. But I know it can be very difficult. And it's I think it's funny that something that for our mothers was natural. Women are investing thousands and thousands in courses, buying books to learn how can I be more in my feminine.
Yeah, it is quite sad in a way, that we're not, I suppose, allowed to be our natural selves, and men aren't in response to that being their natural selves. And like you say, if we are strongly in masculine energy, we're going to attract men that are more likely to step into their feminine, which then isn't so attractive to us, and we wonder why that is. Or we're going to think, well, why isn't somebody that is strongly in their masculine attracted to me, even if you drop dead gorgeous? And it's because he isn't attracted to that masculine energy that you're giving off, and he might not even be aware of why he's not attracted to you, because, as I say, you might be very attractive physically, but he will feel there's another masculine energy in the room, and it's the polarity of energies that create the attraction and the passion. And we don't realize, quite often what energy we're living in or exuding, and that's what's creating the dynamic of when a man that you find attractive doesn't find you attractive. And it's quite often because he's feeling that masculine energy, and that might just be subconsciously, and that puts him off. He's not attracted to that.
And I think it's, I know for a lot of us, we have to wear different hats, and it's very difficult. Like, okay, I have to be this goal getter when I'm at work, and now I have to be fragile flower on a date. Otherwise, he won't like me. But I think it's also important to remember that different environments require different kind of you person. So if a woman can learn to, okay, if I'm going on a date, maybe I need to, I don't know, have a bath or something that will allow you to relax. So you can be in more of your feminine, so you can be more relaxed. So you don't have to try to control everything that man does, from when he's going to pick you up, choosing a restaurant, and where you're going to sit at the restaurant, what you're going to order. Because I think some women do a lot of that, and I can see why. If you, especially if at work, every day you have to make those executive decisions, it's very difficult to step away from that and let someone else do those things for you, because you're so used to being in control.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, one of the biggest things is relinquishing control, and the feminine energy is all about receiving, isn't it? Even the act of sex is about receiving. So I think it's remembering that, that is your true natural essence. That is your natural core energy, being the feminine energy, even though we've got both. then know that that core energy is asking you to relinquish that control and just receive.
Yes, it's not easy sometimes to receive, right? Because when you are receiving, there is also a risk involved. I think sometimes receiving may feel like it's very risky, whether you're receiving love or even a gift. You may think, oh, if I'm receiving a gift now, I need to give something back. But not necessarily. Sometimes your time is just enough why someone wants to give you a gift.
Absolutely. I think, when I've done exercises with women and I've said, let's give each other compliments. Quite often we back them off, or feel that we need to reciprocate that compliment rather than just saying thank you. Don't we?
That's very true. Yes. Someone says, oh, it's a nice dress. I like your dress. And you're like, oh, yes, I bought it on a sale. Or, oh, I had it for such a long time. Instead of thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm.
And I feel that men are in the same boat, when they offer to carry our bags or pull out our chair or, literally open a door. Quite often women won't accept that as receiving a gift from men. They think, well, I'm perfectly capable of doing it for myself. Well, of course you are. But the thing is that he's doing out of an act of chivalry. It makes him feel masculine to give those gestures, and if we learn to accept them, even if it's not in a romantic sense, just could be a colleague or a family member that does these things for you. You can sort of practice these things on men that in your circle, can't you?
And I think definitely, and I think what's happening, because men are hearing all these conflicting messages, they are stopping, they're not doing that as much. Those great manners, they're lacking these days. And I just had recently an incident. I think I made a video about that on my YouTube channel, that I was going, so I live in the UK, and I was traveling from London to Nottingham. Nottingham is where I live. And I was on a train, and the train was packed. There was nowhere to sit. And I was just standing there. And then I sat down. And I was surprised that during the journey, there were a lot of men around. I was surprised that none of the men actually stood up and maybe asked, would you like to take my seat, or would you like to sit there? And I don't know, maybe I'm naive, but on that journey, I was expecting that. And then I was talking to my friend, and she was saying, no, this is how the world is nowadays. And those rules, they have changed. And I think, yes, the rules may be changing, but I also think if we want certain behavior, we have to really encourage. So if someone is opening that door for you, if someone is helping you with your bags or whatnot, I think it's important to make almost like a big deal out of that, and to really appreciate and compliment that person and be grateful, so they know that this is something that we celebrate as women. And I think the more we celebrate something, the more we will get out of more of that. It's like in a relationship. If we compliment our partner and we say that they're great, that we love the cooking that they did, they will do more of that. They will cook that dish again and again. So I think if we could do more of that, just appreciate when things are done the way we would like them done, when those doors are opened.
Yeah, I think it's down to, as I said, a little bit of misunderstanding around what the word equality means. And I think, men think they need to be more like women, and women think they need to be more like men. And that's actually creating a bit of a gender neutral energy, which isn't creating attraction in any way, shape or form. It's just creating an okay relationship that might be either a friendship or, lack of passion and intimacy and aliveness, that on the back of the trainings that that I know that I can share with people, changes to one of, if you want that relationship where you've got lots of passion, aliveness and fulfillment, and there's lots of chemistry and attraction, then that polarity needs to exist between the masculine and feminine energies between you and your partner, doesn't it? That's
very true. Yes. And then I also think there is this almost, I call it the princess or the queen syndrome. And there is a certain type of women that they have this sort of feeling of entitlement, and they think that everything has to be done for them, and they want this queen-like treatment. However, they are not willing to treat a man that they're with like a king. So they want to be a king, the queens themselves, but they want to have almost like a peasant next to them. So then I look at that and I think, well, how do you think this is going to work? And the energy and everything. And because as the time goes by, this man that you think, oh, it's so great, he just does everything that I want, he serves me. As the time goes by, you will lose respect for that, because you do want someone with a strong character and ambition and able to hold the ground and tell you when you are doing something that is maybe out of line. So I think this is why some women even, they stay single, because they can't tolerate someone even pointing out that maybe they did something wrong, or that there is a certain expectation. They just imagine themselves as being God's given gift, which is great. But I think you also have to show up in a certain way that's not just one-sided.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, I can remember myself, I put my hand up and say, I've had that area of superiority in relationships before, where I felt I was being the bigger person and not necessarily acting from a place of entitlement, but literally to the other extreme, where I was too forgiving of unacceptable behavior. I didn't have strong boundaries in place. So, that's the other side of the coin. And that's because I thought I was being the bigger person. But actually, that just created more, acceptable behavior, basically. We treat people how to treat us, don't we?
Mm-hmm. That's something that I went through for quite a few years, actually, where I was attracting one toxic relationship after another. And I would wonder why it's happening like that. I would think of myself, oh, I'm this lovely woman and I'm so nice. Why do I get treated this way? But then as the time went by, I realized that this sort of being nice thing, that was the issue, because you do have to set boundaries. You do have to tell other people what is okay and not okay. You have to teach others how you want to be treated. And sometimes thinking, oh, I'm just going to be a bigger person. I don't want to cause issues. I'm so loving and forgiving. But I think in the end, this is just terrible, absolutely terrible, and causes so much heartache and heartbreak and everything else.
Yeah, and I think it's important to always accept responsibility for our part that we play in any relationship dynamic, whether it's an unhealthy, unfulfilling relationship, or whether it's absolutely, the other end of the scale where it's toxic and really very unhealthy. That we do have our own individual roles to play within that as to why that's happening. You can't point the finger at your partner and just say it's him, can you?
That's another thing. I think very often with single people, it's all about, oh, what is wrong with this person? Why I don't like this person? And the almost the criteria how this person is chosen is not the right one. So I know that you've been in a long-term relationship for many years now, right? So what do you think people should pay attention to when they are choosing a partner that they want to be with? I'm always interested to hear someone's perspective, because I need those tips myself.
Well, actually, I've had 2 long-term relationships. I had a 23-year marriage, and then I had a 10-year long-term relationship, and that was a very amicable separation, and we're still good friends now. And I think the secret to it is knowing this information that we're educating women about. And also the extra thing that I think some people aren't aware of is, are you acting from a place of love? In other words, are you not risk averse? In other words, are you willing to put your heart on the line? Have you done the healing that you need to do in terms of not taking your baggage into your next relationship? So are you open-hearted to start with? And have you sort of worked on yourself to heal any stuff like heartbreak, hurt and trauma from your past, so that you're willing to risk your heart again, but also, from a place of love and listening to your heart, because quite often we enter into relationships with a lot of baggage that we haven't addressed. And also we are in our heads, we're in our minds, and we're sort of stuck in negative self-talk around stuff that's either affected us in the past, or self-talk that isn't going to necessarily attract a great new relationships. For example, if you're thinking all men are cheaters because you've had a couple of men cheat on you in the past, then obviously that's where your focus is going to be, and that negative self-talk is going to affect your own thoughts, behaviors and languages to them. And quite often what you end up doing is creating the exact thing that you don't want, because that's what you're focused on, because you're in your head and you're coming to the relationship from a place of fear, lack and insecurity, rather than from a place of love, and abundance, and feeling absolutely secure and confident in yourself.
I totally agree. And I think with this, I also always think that what you are looking for, you will always find. So if you're always looking for these red flags and dissecting every text, oh, he said something, you are sending screenshots of every interaction to your girlfriend's group. And these girlfriends, they're making the impression without reading like the whole book, as I like to say. They just have a little snippet of whatever that they see, and they're giving you advice based on their own experiences, based on their past, based on all the baggage that they're carrying. So then I think you have a group of people that are wanting to help you, but it just ends up like a disaster. And then you don't trust yourself, and you start making those decisions, and you just think, oh yes, this relationship is definitely not going to work, this person is toxic, and you just move to the next one, which I think it's a big problem nowadays, because we are living in this society where people are so quick to get rid of things instead of trying to fix them. And I think there is no way of maintaining a beautiful, healthy relationship if you don't learn how to communicate, how to resolve conflicts, how to repair after disagreements. I think it's a big problem, and that's why there are a lot of lonely people nowadays. I read somewhere that I think people in their 20s and 30s are having less sex than generations before. Because
that's a shame.
people are, yes, that's very sad, because people are not going out. They're just staying at home. They're watching Netflix. They're on dating apps, but very often they just can't even be bothered to meet. So I think this is really sad.
That's a good job. There's plenty of people like ourselves out here then that are going to hopefully change things for the better and create more love in the world.
Hopefully, yes, hopefully.
On that note, Ieva, what's your best contact information should any of our listeners want to get in touch with you?
So the best way to find me is on my YouTube channel. So it's my name, Ieva Kambarovaite, Ieva Kambarovaite. Yes.
Thank you so much. The name will be on the podcast episode, so don't worry if you don't remember it. So, Ieva, any final thoughts or words of wisdom you want to share with the audience around the theme of why am I still single before we close the episode out?
I think I would like to maybe invite whoever is listening to look at relationships and dating with fresh eyes. And it's good that you had those experiences, that you had people that maybe disappointed you and let you down. And I'm sure there were people that you disappointed or let down. But how can you maybe look at it from a different perspective and see, okay, how can I do something differently? How can I show up in a different way, and not trying to be someone that you are not maybe that you read a book about or watched a video or someone told you who you have to be more feminine, masculine, seductive, or flirty, but who you really are as a person. I think once you gain that understanding who you are as a person, and if you show up more in the way of who you are, and you set boundaries not from the place of I'm entitled, but from the place that I respect myself and I respect you. This is the way why I want to show up like that. I think once you start doing those few things, which sounds easier than it actually is, I can tell from my own experience. But once you make those changes, I think big things happen, and then you create a huge shift in your relationships and the kind of people that you attract just by changing how you show up yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to stress it starts from you. It starts from within, not without. It's not about, looking at past relationships and laying blame or justifying why they didn't work out, but looking at yourself in a really honest and open way, and not also blaming yourself. We don't know what we don't know until we do we?
That's very true. Yes, you do better when you know better, right?
Absolutely. So just understand, a lot of dating coaches, relationship coaches, love coaches have been through these same issues themselves, and that's why they're good and knowledgeable about, being able to impart this wisdom to you. So just know that you're not alone, and there's no need to lay blame on yourself, and there's no need to lay blame on others either, but that work does start from within. So thank you so much, Ieva, for coming on and talking to us today about why am I still single today?
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So it just leaves me to say, until next time, true love starts with opening our hearts, and I'll see you soon on the next episode. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.